During the war, there were blackouts. My father was an air raid warden. He was also a World War I veteran. He walked around with his little air raid warden hat on, his flashlight, and we had to keep the lights out and drapes covering the windows and that sort of thing. It's kind of interesting. As a kid, we thought it was kind of exciting. William McDowell. I'm a retired First Sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. I was born in Newark, New Jersey on October the 20th, 1927. Shortly after I was born, we moved to Montclair, New Jersey, and stayed there until I believe it was 1933 when the house burnt down. I was accused of setting the fire at 5 years old, and so we got evicted and ended up moving to Lower Manhattan in New York. My father was a baker, and he got a job working in Lower Manhattan where he could walk to work. So we lived in an area most people refer to as Little Italy. As a kid, we weren't aware of the Depression, but it was going on at that time. We went to the New York City public school systems, played in the streets, got in fights, did what New York kids do. And I think it was around maybe 12 years old, I made a shoe shine box and shined shoes on the subway in New York. I think around the time I was 14, 15, I got jobs working in restaurants, and I was a stock boy in the summertime for a bookbinding company, and I think at one time one summer job was working for Pan American Airways at LaGuardia Airport on the China Clipper. We cleaned the plane. Eventually ended up in high school in Queens. Even after we moved to Brooklyn, I commuted by train, my brother and I did, to Queens to high school. Every day, and then from high school, we studied on the train because it was about an hour's trip either way.
Recall hearing about Pearl Harbor and what you were doing?
My brother and I and my little gang of thugs were in the movie in Queens. We call it the itch or the scratch or the dump because of how scroungy it was. And I remember on December the 7th, 1941, we were in the dump, and the lights came on, and the manager of the theater made an announcement that the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, and so everybody threw stuff at him and told him to turn the movie back on, because nobody cared about what happened in Hawaii. It was a foreign country where a bunch of people danced and did the hula hula, and we had no idea what he was talking about. I found out after we got home, and my father explained to us what had happened. It was then that we realized what happened.
The severity.
Yeah. Now, the following weekend, or two, we went back to the movies, and on the newsreel, they had some footage of what happened at Pearl Harbor. And then that's when I realized that this is a pretty big deal, A lot of people were killed. Never had that fear that the Japanese or the Germans are going to invade our country. We did hear things about submarines and this sort of thing offshore, the East Coast and the West Coast, but didn't really dawn on us that we were going to be invaded. We did hear that a lot of Japanese citizens got picked up and put into these relocation camps or whatever they were called at the time. We realized that that didn't happen to people of German heritage on the East Coast. That didn't happen to them. So we're a little puzzled about why the Japanese, the word that we got was that they were afraid of sabotage and spies and things of that sort. So, but why the Japanese and not the Germans, you know? So during World War II, the beginning of World War II, which started in December of '41, up until the time I went in the military, you know, rationing of all kinds of consumer goods were in effect. So I do recall that meat and certain canned goods and things like that were scarce. Was scarce. But you know, we survived. We ate a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. During the war, there were blackouts. My father was an air raid warden. He was also a World War I veteran. So he walked around with his little air raid warden hat on, his flashlight, and we had to keep the lights out and you know, drapes covering the windows and that sort of thing. My brother went in the Marine Corps a year before me, and he came home and told me a bunch of lies, and I said, boy, it sounds like interesting. By that time I was in high school, of course, and in New York you take a thing called the Regents exam. It's a state exam. And if you want to go to college, you have to graduate, and you have to pass the Regents exam. I shocked everybody and passed the Regents exam, barely. And there's no point in hanging around for high school graduation, so I went down to the induction center and told the guy I wanted to join the Marine Corps.